Hamilton of Florida State University. Coach, welcome to Anaheim. We're going to open it up with a statement from Coach, and then we'll go to questions. Coach, go ahead.
This team has found a way all year long to deal with adversity, and it seems as though with each challenge we have, we grow stronger as a result of it. Obviously, everyone knows that this team, we had a tragedy last week, but I think our guys have regrouped. This has been very challenging, but our guys are focused, and we're hopeful that how we represent ourselves will be a reflection of the respect we had for Mike Kofor and the Kofor family. We have to find some way to, whenever you're dealing with things like this, you don't ever really know exactly what's the right thing to do, but I think for the most part, our guys have grown and we've turned our attention to the game preparation as it relates to Gonzaga. We know they're an outstanding team. I think we refocused and we're looking forward to the game on tomorrow.
Okay, we'll open up to questions for Coach Hamilton. Please raise your hand. We'll get the microphone to you. We're going to start. Okay, so we're going to do, I see three people. We're going to start right there in the check shirt. We're going to go here in the black, and then we're going to go right back to the edge.
Leonard Joe Reedy, Associated Press. Just wondering, in your years as a coach, if you've dealt with a player tragedy or another tragedy like this while having a team in the tournament?
Not while having a team in the tournament, but we've had, anytime you work with young people and families and teams people from all walks of life, you go through this from time to time, but not doing a tournament like this. But life sometimes gives you those types of curveballs that you just got to learn how to adjust and deal with it the best you can.
We'll go right here.
Yeah, Coach Chuck Culpepper from the Washington Post. Mark Few said after your chapter 1 of this series last year that it's harder than you would think to play 11 guys that many minutes. I was wondering, what are the general worries that a coach might have, both obvious and less obvious, about doing that, worries that you've clearly overcome?
Well, my journey as a coach, I've always had programs that we've had to build. Obviously, I was in the Big 8 conference, and then I took the job at the University of Miami, and they were independent with no conference affiliation, and we immediately joined the Big East with Georgetown and Syracuse and St. John's and Villanova. So it would have been foolish for me to think that I was going to show up from an independent and all of a sudden get the same level of players that I was competing against. So we had to develop a system that allowed us to compete. And we feel that we need to win games by committee. We need to have the full sum of all our parts working well in order for us to be successful. That's the culture that we've tried to create. And that's pretty much why we do what we do. I mean, I'm in a conference now in the ACC with some of the most richest tradition, successful basketball programs in the history of college basketball. We got 75, 80 years of successful tradition ahead of us. So we have to find, I'm probably not going to necessarily catch up with those types of numbers. When you take Carolina, the third winningest program in the history of college basketball, Duke's 4th, Syracuse is 5th, Notre Dame's 9th, Louisville's 14th, North Carolina State's 25th. And so, and it goes on and on and on in our league. So what we try to do is just have good players that play extremely hard and play unselfish. And we've created a culture where they cheer for one another. And for instance, the other night, Fiondu came to me at least 3 times in the Murray State game begging me not to put him back in the game because he wanted Chris to get some confidence as he was playing well, but Chris was tired. So I put Fiondu back in the game, and then he faked like he was tired so he can come back out of the game to give Chris more minutes. Last year in this tournament, Fiondu was playing well. Phil was a senior. and Fiondu was tired, and I asked Phil, give him a blow, and he didn't want to go into the game because he wanted Fiondu to have some level of success. But that's the kind of culture that we've been able to create, and I think that's one reason why our kids make share playing time, they share the ball, and we hold each other accountable from an effort standpoint. And that's just been our philosophy, and it's developed. That's the best way we feel that we can compete in a conference where you have what you call a lot of the blue bloods.
Okay, we're going to go on the third row on the edge, and then we'll go to the back over there. So, go ahead.
Sam Dodge, SB Nation. Coach, was there any chance of Phil coming out to Anaheim before what happened with his family based on his injury?
I think Phil wanted to be with. He wanted to come to Anaheim, but we flew from Hartford to Atlanta and sat down with his parents and the arrangements and the responsibilities that he has as a family. He just they just felt that it was best for him to be there and be part of the arrangements and everything. He had planned to come back and come out with us and come back, but at that time, he didn't know what the arrangements were. He didn't have an idea because no one has told him. But once they sat down as a family and discussed it, it became obvious that the best thing for him to do was to sacrifice being out here with his teammates and take care of the family business. And I agree with him.
We're going to go to the sixth row in the middle, please.
Billy Witz with the New York Times. Leonard, you mentioned that you were uncertain about kind of how to go about addressing all this with your team, and I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on maybe just what your guiding principles might have been that led you to how you're going to handle it.
Well, we were very fortunate. We have a sports psychologist that visits us from time to time named Dr. Joseph Clarke, and he happened to be with us during this period, and he really, really helped us because that's part of what they do. And we, obviously it was a very emotional period there in the locker room, and there's no way to describe that and the emotions of his teammates and Phil. But once we got back to the hotel, we made arrangements for Phil, and then we met as a team and as a staff for about an hour and a half, going over all the emotions that go along with dealing with a situation like this, just to see whether or not we could not allow some things to develop that we had not talked about and discussed. And we had a very, very good session with the staff and all the team members and everybody involved, led by Dr. Carr. And we got a lot of things off our chest. Kids talked about, shared their experiences. And I think it did a lot to bring us somewhat back into the right focus. You just don't ever really know when you're dealing with those types of things, how it manifests itself in different responses. And we've been in communication with Phil, and I'm sure his teammates they have too. So we think we did the right thing, and but grief raises ugly head sometime in different forms. I hope we've addressed it properly.
We're going to right here in the third row, please.
Hey, Coach, Eddie Pelz from AP. I know the thing with Phil seems to be overshadowing a lot, but before that, what do you think the biggest sort of difference between last year's team and this year's team is, a year later?
We've had a lot of different type of challenges this year. Phil had a stress fracture early in the year and missed, maybe 10 or 12 games early. Then when he came back, he had some issues just getting back on top of his game. And Terrence had a bone bruise, and MJ bumped his knee, we had a lot of moving things going on that most teams go through, but it kind of kept us, kind of spurred them in a little bit, not being able to get into a flow. We had 5 new players that we had to get into that had not played at this level before, that we had to get integrated into a rotation system. So we kind of sputtered a little bit. But it seems as though with each challenge and each responsibility that we've had, we kind of improved, grown, matured a little bit. And I think we come into this tournament in a pretty good place, with the exception of dealing with the grief. But our kids cheer for each other. They understand the way we have to play with who we are in order for us to be successful. This is a tremendous challenge coming to the West Coast and playing against the #1 program on the West Coast. I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for what Coach Few has been able to do. When you take under consideration that no one has had the level of success that he's enjoyed at Gonzaga since John Wooten, and that's high cotton. That's how company to be in. No one on the West Coast has enjoyed that level of success since Coach Wooten was here, and we all know that he was the most dominant figure in college basketball probably ever in the history of the game. And Coach Few probably is number 2 in terms of what he's been able to accomplish. And so he has a culture, they have a system, and we know it's going to be a tremendous challenge.
Joe, go ahead.
Joe Reedy from AP. Leonard, how much does familiarity help at this stage since you played Gonzaga last year? And as far as guarding Hachimura, would you kind of have the same strategy you did against Murray State as far as Morant?
Well, the difference in Gonzaga and Murray, they have a few other guys other than Hachimura that are really, really good. And so we have to prepare for their entire team because they're capable. They have 5 guys on the floor that are capable of putting up big numbers. I think you've seen that during the course of the year. It's obvious that Moran is an outstanding player, but his supporting cast wasn't nearly as strong as Gonzaga's supporting cast. I mean, they are really, really talented, and so we're going to have to be a lot better. Now, from a familiarity standpoint, they're going to be more familiar with us, and we'll be more familiar with them. The team is going to probably be successful as a team that come the closest to being who they are and reach playing up to their potential. We have a system, they have one. They're not going to change very much, and neither are we. So it's going to be this time of year, regardless of who you play, it's going to be in the Sweet 16, it's going to be a challenging game. And hopefully we'll prepare for it.
We have time for one more question if anybody wants it. Final call? All right, thank you, Coach Hamilton. Thank you, sir. And in just a moment, we'll be joined by Terrence Mann, Trent Forrest, and Fiondu Kabengele. We're getting squared away in the back room there. Come on up. Yeah. Welcome. Careful. All right, so we're joined Trent Forrest, Fiondu Kabengele, Terrence Mann. One slight change from the last press conference, or the last part of this, is if you have a question that you want to ask to everyone, please address it to one individual first. Otherwise, I will address it to one individual first, and you may not get the person who you want to have talk. So please don't do a, hey, this is for everyone. We're going to go straight into questions. Go ahead, Joe.
Joe Reedy, Associated Press. Terrence, have you had a chance to talk to Phil the last couple of days, and just how is he doing?
Yeah, I talked to him. He's doing a lot better. He just kind of wished us luck, told us he'll be watching, just talking about the game and what our game plan was.
You can slide the mics a little closer to you if you want, so you don't have to lean quite so far in. More questions for the student athletes? Okay, we'll go back to Joe, and then we have in the very back.
Just for starting with Terrence and then going to Fiondu and Trent, how much you guys faced Xavier in the tournament last year, and there was a familiarity level there from the year before. Just with Gonzaga, how much does a familiarity help facing them last year?
I think it definitely helps just because, you face a team the year before in the same round, with the same type of feeling, Sweet 16. So last year's game definitely will help us a lot in terms of reference points for our game plan.
I feel like with this team and with Gonzaga, the stars kind of aligned for us, and we kind of saw the matchup kind of lining up on Selection Sunday. So we understand their offense, they understand our offense and defense. So it's going to be very exciting to be a part of it and just get out there tomorrow.
Yeah, I would kind of go off of what Terrence said. I feel like last year, even with playing Xavier, just the familiarity helped us a lot. We kind of understood what they were going to do. So I feel like this year it'll kind of be the same thing for Gonzaga. We'll know what they're trying to do, and we'll be familiarized with it.
Okay, and before we get to the next question, if I could ask everybody who's in the back of the room to please be quiet. Your voices are carrying up to the podium, and it makes it hard to hear up here. We're going to go in the very back of the room. Go ahead, and then we're going to go over by the pole there.
Mark Wicker, Orange County Register. This is for Trent. Week to week in the ACC, you guys have to learn how to deal with the ups and downs because of the competition, and that seems to have made you tougher in this tournament the last couple of years. Could you just describe what that weekly grind is like?
It's very tough. I mean, each week you're playing usually top 25 team in the country, and if not, I mean, you're playing a team that'll end up in the tournament. So I feel like just with that competition level, it prepares us very well for tournaments like this where we have to have 1 day and 2 day turnarounds where we have to play another good team and then a better team after that. So I feel like just the ACC prepares us well with having these quick turnarounds where we have to focus on another good team.
Okay, we're going to go to the pole right there in the greenish blue.
This is for any of you guys.
Could you please identify yourself?
Yeah, Keith Oso, KXOY in Spokane. Last year, right before the game, Killian Tilly got scratched with an injury, and he's back this year. And Brandon Clarke with his emergence. Just how different to you guys does this team look preparing than they did the team you actually played last year?
Terrence, why don't you go ahead and start, and we'll just work our way down.
I think they're definitely more athletic with both of them in, and shot and the three ball. So it's definitely a different look than it was last year. And Clarke's athleticism is just crazy. So, he's going to challenge everything at the rim. So it's just going to be a whole different, game defensively and offensively.
With those addition to those guys, it just makes their team a bit deeper. They can play more bodies. They can play at a faster pace that they're used to playing. So, they're not going to wear it down as easy as other teams will. So we understand that. But to have Tilly and Clarke is going to be a challenge just because of their athleticism. And, they match up really well with us bigs, and they defend really well. So it's going to be a tough challenge for us tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, adding those two guys, they add more athleticism, more length and size to their team. So, I mean, across the board, they're going to match up basically kind of identical to how we like to play and how we have our players with length and size inside. So it's just going to be a good matchup with adding those two guys.
We're going to go right here in the middle, and then we'll go back to Mark in the back, please.
Fiondu.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Eddie Pels from Associated Press. I know Canada is a big country, but did you know Brandon Clarke, play against him, play with him, any connection to him through growing up?
No, I'm from Ontario, Canada, which is east, and he's from the West Coast. So I never had opportunity to see him, and then when I came through college, I know he just kind of came out of nowhere. So I'm proud that he's a fellow Canadian. He's playing really well. So sorry.
Mark, go ahead.
Terrence, those of us who watched the games in Staples last year know how bitter a loss that was and how tough that was to take, not being able to get to the Final Four. Did you watch the Final Four last year, or were you just kind of trying to turn your back on it after such a tough loss?
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Fiondu, Trent, you got any comment?
I watched a bit. I'm not gonna lie. So After that, obviously it was a tough loss, but I did watch it. You know, just seeing talent like that, just good to see. But I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I watched it as well. I mean, it definitely hurt because we know we were so close to being there, but I mean, you still want to see what goes on. So I would say, I mean, it was all right.
Any more questions for the student athletes? We'll go one final call. Any comments before you go about coming to California? Have you been to California before? Been to Anaheim before? Any of you?
You got it.
Yeah, this is probably my third or fourth time coming to California, and I have family that lives probably like 15 minutes away, so it's a good time.
Cool.
It's a very beautiful city, Anaheim, California. So, yeah.
All right. Oh, we got one more. Sorry, we got one more question. We almost got you out of here.
Yeah, Reed Forgrave with CBS Sports for Terrence. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your personal philosophy on defense, how you approach trying to lock down a guy, and then how that plays into this team's bigger defensive identity, I guess.
Well, you know, we just try to pressure the ball, get after dudes, make people work, not make it easy for them to get to their spots on the offensive end. And then in terms of the bigger defensive philosophy, like I said, as a team, we're just trying to not make people get to their normal spots by pressuring that ball and make it difficult for them to get to the rim. And then when they do get to the rim, we got guys like him contesting it.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that something that you've always, since you were a kid, always put emphasis on, or is that something that you've learned through Coach Ham?
I definitely learned through Coach Ham. You know, when you're growing up, a lot of people just care about scoring the ball and offense and stuff like that. But when you get to Florida State, you learn fast. You know, the only way you're going to get on the court is defense.
Okay. Any further questions for the student athletes? Final call? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. We will be back at 12:10 with the student athletes from Gonzaga. And those will be to address to everybody, that's great, but please address it to one student athlete first, and then we'll work our way down the line. That'll make it easier. We're going to start right there against the pole, please.
Aaron Torres, Fox Sports. Questions for Josh. I mean, of the three guys on the podium, obviously you're the only one that was on the court last year against these guys. Is it anything personal, anything extra, considering how last season ended?
I mean, obviously, I think about that game to this day, but nothing personal. It's a new team, new year, but yeah, it's hard for me not to think about that. But I mean, we owe them something, but nothing personal at all.
More questions? Go, you want to follow up? Go ahead.
I guess for Brandon, I mean, I know, Gino, you weren't with the team. Brandon, you were either watching from the sidelines or back in Spokane. I mean, one, just impressions, memories from last season, and then two, how much better is it to be out on the court as opposed to last year watching?
Yeah, I was actually back home watching that one. Watching the game, they were just really, really physical versus us, and I feel like we just kind of struggled with that. I feel like we were just kind of like content to just making it there, last year. But this year, I feel like we have bigger goals. So, I feel like that, this team is kind of built better to play versus teams that are more physical and with bigger size than we were last year probably. So, just looking forward to, playing versus that size and that physicality.
In the very back, Mark Wicker.
This is for Josh. Mark Wicker from the Orange County Register. You guys had so many blowout games this year, and I know coaches always practice late game situations. Did you end up doing a lot more of that this year just to make sure that you'd be prepared for the tournament when you do have a close game coming up?
Yeah, we do a lot of late game stuff, scenarios in practice, but we've also had some close games this year. Just being poised and composed in times like that is huge. And we've had some games that we lost too, and just learning from that, and we've done that. And the coaches do a good job of putting us through some scenarios, as you said. So hopefully we don't have anything like that, anytime soon. But if we do, we're ready for it.
Any more questions? Go ahead.
All right, Aaron Torres, Fox Sports. Kind of to follow up on that question, it was a long time since you had lost prior to that St. Mary's game. I guess I'll start with Josh, and any of you guys can answer. You never want to lose. We get it. You guys are competitors. Do you think that the loss to St. Mary's did allow you guys to refocus kind of on what's ahead coming up?
Yeah. Like you said, we won a lot of games, before that St. Mary's game. And when you win, you don't really, learn a lot, and it hides a lot of things. But when you lose, the truth comes out. There's stuff that we could fix, as a team, as individuals as well. So with that loss, a lot of things came to light that we needed to work on. So we learned from that. We watched the film, and as you see, we played better the game after that. So in a way, I'm not glad we lost, but I think that loss definitely helped this team, and for sure.
Gino or Brandon, you want to comment on that, the coming out of that?
Yeah, I think we talk about we're a real results-oriented group, so I think not getting the result we wanted, in that particular contest kind of shed light on some of the things that we were getting away with, that we were able to win and succeed with some of the mistakes we had made. So again, not getting the result we wanted in that instance, I think kind of opened our eyes to some of the stuff we had to be better and work on, and I think we really focused on working on all of those things and improving and making some of our weaknesses into strengths in a sense. And yeah, ever since then, just kind of been focused on the next one and how we could be the best, every time we step out on the court.
Mark, go ahead.
This for Brandon. This program has always been known as a place where players develop, where they spend a lot of time working on individual skills and getting players better. You went through that process. You transferred, then you played, then you redshirted, and now this. What was that process like in terms of the things that they singled out that you needed to get better at, and how much work and time is entailed in doing that?
Yeah, it was something that was actually really, really tough on me. Obviously not playing games and just kind of having to sit on the bench every game and watch was something that I didn't really like. But, with that being said, I had, lots of days where I was just training. I was just lifting every day. I was shooting every day. I would still practice every day. I still got, lots of reps during practice, just always up, versus Arulian versus J3 and Tilly. So that was also good for my game too. It was also nice because I could kind of learn Gonzaga's system more. But it was just lots of days where I couldn't travel, so I would just be kind of back at home working out. So it was something that I didn't like doing really, but it was something that was huge though for me. So I wouldn't change it for anything.
Any more questions? Guys, I know your assistant coach, Donnie Daniels, had a long career over at Cal State Fullerton. Did he tell you anything about the region, about Anaheim coming down here, or anything about Southern California?
He didn't, but now that you say that, we gotta plug his brain a little bit and see if he has any secrets for us.
Fair enough. All right, any more questions for the student athletes? All right, final call. All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, we will start with Coach Few at 12:25. 12:25.
It should be.
All right, we're joined by Gonzaga coach Mark Few. We're going to do the standard procedure. We'll open up with a statement from Coach Few and then open up to questions. Same procedure as last time. Coach, the floor is yours.
Obviously, it is a great honor, and we're very excited to be here again for the 5th straight time in the Sweet 16, which is just kind of an incredible streak that you know, the players at Gonzaga have been able to accomplish. It's not easy getting through that first weekend, and couldn't be more proud of this group, how they kind of managed and navigated their way through it, and especially in Lou, we weren't feeling great about how we played in our conference tournament. So it was great to see us get through that. Looking forward to playing Florida State, but also understanding just, man, oh man, are they a very, very good basketball team that just does a great job of defensively taking you out of what you want to do, and then offensively just coming at you with, you know, just a bunch of bodies and always, you know, coming and coming and coming, both on the glass and in transition, and then when they're making threes like they did last game, very impressive.
Okay, we'll open up to questions. Please raise your hand. I'll call on you in the order I see you, and then we'll get a microphone to you. Any questions for Coach Few? Okay, we have 2 in the back and 1 in the front, so we'll go very, very back in the corner, then Mark, and then the middle.
Mark, Chuck Culpepper from the Washington Post. Last year you mentioned in your post-game remarks that Leonard playing so many guys that many minutes is a really hard thing for a coach to do. In general, what are the worries about that? I mean, maybe like envy among players, or maybe flow or something. What would be the worries, and the worries that they've clearly overcome?
I mean, I would just say that. I mean, most of these guys want to play 40 minutes and don't ever want to come out. I mean, my guys don't like coming out of games. So it's just a great job by he and his staff setting the culture that, you know, A, when you're out there, you're going to play crazy hard and give it everything you got, and then B, you're passing the baton to the next guy, and he's fine with that. So I think that's probably the most difficult thing is that, and then they obviously do a wonderful job in explaining that in recruiting too, because usually, you know, when you're recruiting, everybody wants to start and wants to shoot and wants to play 40 minutes a game. So I tip my hat to what they've been able to do there, and it's a system that certainly has worked and worked very well.
Mark, go ahead in the very back.
Mark Wicker, Orange County Register. Could you kind of, I know you've done this before, but kind of describe Brandon's development through the redshirt year, through the transfers, and I'm sure he's better at a lot of things than he was then, but what are the biggest things that you guys have developed him on?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest with you, he's developed himself. I mean, he did a great job actually from the time he decided to transfer before he got up to Gonzaga, because the clips that I watched him when he was at San Jose State, when my assistant Brian Michelson brought him to me, he said, "Now, Coach, okay, he's really athletic. He's got a knack for making stuff around the rim, but this shot is broken and cannot be fixed." And by the time he got to Gonzaga, I was like, I don't know about that. I think it looks pretty good. And he worked extremely hard on it. Brandon did. And obviously the staff did a great job also, but now it's to the point where, I mean, he can really shoot the ball out to 3. I think he's grown with his feel for the game. You know, when you play in our system as a big, you know, if you look over the history of the Olenics and Sabonises and Collinses and Karnowskis, Turiovs, guys like that, I mean, we really want our bigs to initiate a lot of our offensive action, and Brandon's really grown just in the last couple months with that. I mean, I thought he was going to be really, really good for us, but, I mean, not even I predicted that he'd be this good, and he's been, you know, phenomenal a lot of nights. And guys, I had no idea when somebody threw out the stat that he has more blocks than he has misses on the year. I mean, that is just an unbelievable statistic at this point in the year.
We're going to go to the fourth row right here in the.
Eddie Pels from AP. Leonard was sitting in that chair about an hour ago and said, "You're the John Wooden of this generation when it comes to West Coast basketball." Thoughts?
That might be the greatest exaggeration of all time. John, nobody can hold up to John Wooden, and he's obviously one of my heroes, and read every possible book written about him. So, wow.
Well, I guess maybe just as a follow-up, you know, the pyramid and everything he was about, is there anything you liked the most from his messages?
Well, there's a bunch. I mean, he's a man of had great faith and was able to keep his faith, you know, during and throughout his whole career in this crazy profession. I always loved the way his teams played. They had an unselfishness about them, even though they had great players. And, you know, so, I mean, that's something that I think we really try, you know, and I think we've done a nice job with that at Gonzaga. You know, and again, anything I could take out and try to apply both to my team and my own personal life, I did, because he's definitely one of my heroes in life.
We'll go back to Mark in the very back, please.
Mark, you had a lot of decisive wins, as you've had in other years, but when you have a lot of decisive wins, do you spend extra time in practice going over the late game close situations that you inevitably are going to run into?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark, and the answer is yes. I mean, we've probably spent more time, I think our team would tell you, in practice just playing little 3-minute games, 2-minute games, 1 minute or 30-second scenarios. You know, probably, you know, you get a rhythm to your practices, and we'd probably do those at least twice a week throughout, you know, our league schedule, which was Thursday, Saturday, and so, and try to vary it. I mean, I'd send my main crew out there and make them down 7 with 3 to go and have to deal with that, or up 7 with 2 to go and things like that. So, but to be honest with you, nothing really simulates, you know, game type scenarios and game type action. And then play Florida State, I mean, it's literally impossible to simulate the length and the size and the athleticism that they come at you. And so, you know, you do the best job that you can. It's obviously a blessing to be able to win all those games by that many points. It's a lot easier on the stomach and a lot easier on the heart, but I guess if there is a downside to something like that, it would be, you know, maybe not getting in-game work on into-game stuff.
We'll go right, very back corner. Chuck?
You were talking about preparing for Florida State. Just those numbers, does that make the tape study, all the combos and everything, more complicated?
I mean, we've tried to simplify it for our guys, actually. And, you know, I mean, if you just look at it from kind of a guard position and then a big position, that's kind of how we've broken it down for our guys. And then obviously when Cabangeli's on the floor, they're different than when, you know, the big fella's on the floor. So trying to kind of break it down into those things, I think, to make it a little more easier to assimilate for the guys. I actually playing them last year, I think, really helps us. At least at this point in the preparation, we'll find out more tomorrow night. But it helps that we experienced that last year when we're trying to tell these guys what it's going to be like.
Any further questions for Coach Few? Final call. Thank you, Coach.
Yep, thanks.
All right, we'll be back at 12:50 with Texas Tech. 12:50 with Texas Tech. That'll be Coach Chris Beard. Then at 1:05, we'll have student athletes Brandon Francis, Tariq Owens, Matt Mooney, and Lorenz Odaisi.